Thank you for today we're reading from the fourth canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 13. This is text number 41. We have a verse on the board. Thank you for both for writing the verse. And please repeat after me. Akridhe Kridato Palam Dayasyan Atidarunaha Rasahya Niranukroshaha Ashu Maram Amarayat Akride Kridato Balam Avayasyan Atidarunaha Rasaya Niranukroshaha Ashumaram Amarayat Akride Kridato Balam Avayasyan Atidarunaha Rasaya Niranukroshaha Ashumaram Amarayat Akride Kridato Balam Ayasyan Atidarunaha Rasaya Niranukroshaha Ashumaram Amarayat
Akride Kridato Balam Ayasyan
I didn't say the pronouns that we normally say before we recite this Bhagavatam, which is Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I'll say that now, we can repeat that. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, please repeat. Akride in the playground. Kridataha while playing. Balam boys. Ayasyan of his age. Atidarunaha very cruel. Rasaya by force. Niranukroshaha merciless. Pashumaram, as if slaughtering animals. Amarayat, killed. Heavy stuff. Translation. The boy was so cruel that while playing with young boys of his age, he would kill them very mercilessly, as if they were animals meant for slaughter. Please repeat. The boy was so cruel that while playing with young boys of his age, he would kill them very mercilessly, as if they were animals meant for slaughter. So we're hearing about King Vena. Well, before he was the king, we're hearing about him as a young boy. I'm going to read the next verse. There's no report here. This is Srimad Bhagavatam. Carrying on here, this is text 42. There's no purport until text 44. I think maybe 43. So we'll read until we come to the purport. Tam vichaksha kalamputram shashanir nividya nipaha irana shashikam kalpo risham asit sudurmanaha. Translation. After seeing the cruel and merciless behavior of his son, Vena, King Anga punished him in different ways to reform him, but was unable to bring him to the path of gentleness. Thus, he became greatly aggrieved. 43. Purport here. Text 43. Prayena vyar archito devo ye praja griha medinaha yad apatya britam dukham ye na vindanti durbharam. Translation. The king thought to himself, persons who have no son are certainly fortunate. They must have worshipped the Lord in their previous lives, so that they would not have to suffer the unbearable happiness caused by a bad son. Report. It is said that a married couple must have a son, otherwise their family life is void. But a son born without good qualities is as good as a blind eye. A blind eye has no use for seeing, but it is simply unbearably painful. The king, therefore, thought himself very unfortunate to have such a bad son. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnanam Jana Shalakaya Chakshurunmritam Nina Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Panchakapatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vaikucha Itanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so we're hearing about King Anga, and this is part of the conversation between Maitreya Rishi and Vidura. They finished the discussion of the pastime of Dhruva Maharaj, and they are discussing the lineages that have come from Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj's eldest son, he didn't take up any responsibilities within the material world. He decided to engage himself completely in bhakti with no external engagements other than very bare maintenance of his body, and engaged himself in Krishna's eternal service and returned back home, back to Godhead. And then from there, the next son of Dhruva took over, and then there's a lineage all the way through to the fourth Manu, Chakshusha Manu, and from him we have this lineage that includes King Anga, and now we're hearing about his son, Vena. King Anga was a great soul, a Mahatma, and he was performing his external duties, responsibilities for Krishna's pleasure as service. And as the king, he had the responsibility to continue the royal order for the sake of protecting the citizens. This is the Kshatriya duty, to protect. The duty of the administrator, the duty of the king is to give protection to the citizens. That's the primary responsibility. In order to do that, a lineage needed to be established, and that means having a son who will become the next king. They were having difficulty having a son. Eventually they did, and it seemed like that responsibility was fulfilled. However, we hear about how things didn't quite play out as maybe anticipated. And the son, from a very early age, started to display bad behavior. And this is a very interesting thing. I work in education. I've worked as a teacher. I currently work as a school principal here at Hare Krishna School. So these topics are quite relevant, and yes, this section of Bhagavatam is very interesting, and how to understand some of the principles that are expressed here in Bhagavatam, and how to understand those principles, how to apply them in one's own life, and what is their relevance to us and our service. It's here in Bhagavatam for a reason. The Prabhupada explains that we have to study the first 9 cantos of Bhagavatam so that we can properly understand 10th canto. And 10th canto of Bhagavatam very much revolves around Krishna's Leela, particularly focuses on Krishna's Leela in Vrindavan, and our spiritual goal of attaining Krishna Prema, love for Krishna. Lord Chaitanya, Krishna himself, having completed his Leela, expressed that I've displayed my pastimes in the material world, I've given my teachings for the benefit of my devotees, and he expressed that have people understood it? Has it been lost? And therefore, part of his desire to come again as Lord Chaitanya was to teach the people of the world, to show the example of how to apply Bhagavatam and how to achieve the purpose of Bhagavatam, which was the reason for Krishna's incarnation. Bhagavatam is there to After Krishna disappears, Bhagavatam appears so that people can access Krishna, so that devotees can access Krishna. And by the mercy of devotees, by the mercy of Krishna, so that everyone can access Krishna. So Lord Chaitanya his pastimes are the Acharya Lila. That term was used in Chaitanya Charitamrita. He comes to show the example of how to live according to Srimad Bhagavatam, he's the example of what Bhagavatam looks like when applied. And he expresses that's part of the reason for his coming. Lord Chaitanya's appearance is to show us how to apply the principles of Bhagavatam. So there are principles here for us to understand, for us to apply in our lives and understand the relevance of. So when I read Srimad Bhagavatam, I am reading to hear from Srila Prabhupada, to learn from Srila Prabhupada. So we approach Bhagavatam, and we approach hearing from Srila Prabhupada in that mood of wanting to imbibe and understand and apply. So what are some of the principles here that we can extract from this section of Bhagavatam? Well, there's a few things that come up for me, and I thought I'd try and share some of those. So one was that King Anga, he was trying to perform his responsibilities to the best of his ability. And in the course of his doing that, the result was maybe not necessarily what he had intended. I believe there's a lesson there that we should do our duty according to what is our duty. We have to understand what that is. How do we do that? Through association, through guidance from Guru. So Guru Tattva is essential. We have to understand Guru Tattva. That's a big topic in itself. But yeah, we understand the principle is that we should perform our duties for Krishna's pleasure as service. The results of those, well, everything is beyond our control. What is within our control? Nothing really. What are we? We are Atma. We are minute, part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, the tiny jiva. What is in our control? Well, very little. Our motivations are in our control. We can choose what motivates us, and we can choose the direction of our actions, and ultimately that's all facilitated by the Lord and His potencies, and the results of that are ultimately in Krishna's hands. So we depend on Krishna. But there are multiple factors in every action. It's not just about the desire of the jiva. Bhagavad Gita explains this. There's 5 factors of action. Overarching is Ishvara, the supreme controller. Then there is the circumstances, the time, the place, the action itself, the others involved, the performer. So there's multiple factors at play at any one time in any given action. Existence is not black and white. Existence is variegated and diverse. Krishna is Ishvara. One meaning of Ishvara is capable. It also means that there is the capacity to do, the capacity to do. So ultimately, only Krishna has the capacity to make things happen. Everything is going on ultimately by his potency, by his capacity. So there's a number of factors that that are at play at any given time, and here we're hearing about this instance of King Vena and his desire to have a son. Something else that another principle that's talked about here is the impact of the mother and the father and their state of being, their consciousness, their karma, and how that impacts and produces the child. It's not the only factor, but it is a factor. So it's mentioned that Anga is married to Sunita. Sunita is the daughter of death. So she has that quality, and she has a nature quality, and that it also, Srila Prabhupada also highlights in earlier purports that another principle that the nature of the son generally is according to inherited from the nature of the mother. So this is this place in Shastra where that is explained, that the son has the nature of the mother. So, and it said that because death is considered inauspicious as a quality. It's a product of Tamaguru, and it's a tamasic aspect of Prakriti, material nature. So it's considered inauspicious in that regard. It's natural, of course. Prakriti is part of Krishna's creation, but it has that quality of tamas. And the inauspiciousness in Venu is associated to his mother here in Bhagavata. Interesting. Not the only factor, we shouldn't. This is material. This is the nature of material nature. It's very complicated and very messy, and there's multiple factors at play. And in material existence, if you try and arrange a situation where everything is sorted, everything is auspicious, everything is as it should be, that's a false endeavor. It's not going to happen in the material world. And that is a lesson in of itself, that really our aspiration should be in the spiritual. Because the real form of all objects is in the spiritual world. The spiritual world is the perfect realm where the people, places, and things are all perfect and are all as they should be, and everything works perfectly. That is the origin of, we can say origin, the origin of all existence. It is the real form of existence. And what we experience of existence in the material world is the shadow reflection of that, and will always have inherent faults and will always be messed up. It's just the very nature of material existence. It is perfectly imperfect. So to put our aspirations into the material world as a place where we will find perfect situation will always baffle us, will always be baffled in that, because it's just not the place where that can happen inherently. So that acceptance is important for sadhakas, for Vaishnavas, and therefore Krishna highlights the inherently perfectly imperfect nature of material existence again and again for our benefit, so that we don't put aspirations that are unrealistic into a realm where they're never going to be fulfilled. So, where do we put our aspirations? We should put our aspirations in the reality. And our ability to do that is based on our faith, which is based on our knowledge, and which is based on our association, all of these factors. And as we apply ourselves in devotional service and bhakti, acting according to that faith, that I will just act to try and please Krishna. That's pure faith. That's the result of pure knowledge. Sambandha Gyan, knowledge of the elements. If we have correct Sambandha Gyan, we'll come to that conclusion. Everything is dependent on Krishna. Krishna's service is ultimately all there is. Everything I do should be aimed at pleasing Krishna. Krishna Bhakti Koila Sada Karma Krita Hoy. Krishna Bhakti Koila Sada Karma Krita Hoy. This is the definition of faith given in Shraddha Shabde Vishwastahi Sudridanish Choy. This is the Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami's definition of faith. It's a paraphrase of the verse from Bhagavatam. It says that Krishna Bhakti Koila Sada Karma Krita Hoy. Everything should just be done for Krishna. Everything, Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. Sarva Karma, everything, all actions, everything should be done for Krishna. So that's the symptom of faith, Shraddha, the desire to just please Krishna. So that's the seed of prema, because love is all about pleasing Krishna. The spiritual world works, all of the relationships, all of the activities of Krishna's eternal associate, it's all harmonious because of the influence of prema. Prema harmonizes all of the activities of the spiritual world. Because there's nothing but prema there. It's all a manifestation of the devotee's love for Krishna. So even though it's full of variety, even though there are all of the variegatedness that we see in material existence in its pure form is found there. There's nothing missing. It is existence in its pure state. And it's all harmonious because of the influence of prema. So the example is the still lake and the stone thrown into the lake. All the stones go into the same spot, all the ripples, they expand, they don't collide. There's no collision. They all just expand, right? If the stone is dropped in the same place every time. But when the stone is all thrown in different places, you get all these different ripples and they collide, right? Then in the spiritual world, everything is done for Krishna's pleasure. Everything and everyone is doing everything for his Krishna. So it all works. There's no collision. In the material world, everyone's doing everything for themselves. So there's lots of stones all over, being thrown all over the place, and there's lots of collision. And that's chaotic. Still, the devotee desires to keep focused on service in the material world, our desire is to do everything to please Krishna. And by the cultivation of that desire, our faith builds from Shraddha and goes from Shraddha to prema. And that's sadhana bhakti. Sadhana bhakti is that endeavor which is based on Shraddha to please Krishna. which is aimed at achieving Bala. So back to here in Bhagavatam, the king Anga, he was well motivated in his, and this is also very interesting. He was well motivated and properly situated in his actions. So regardless, even though externally there was a consequence that appeared to be negative, still for him, because he was rightly situated in his determination and in his purpose, even from that apparent external problematic situation, he personally still benefited and attained perfection. It's said that there was that inauspicious element that had that result. His auspicious, coming from his auspicious place of doing everything to please Krishna, the result of all of this external activity was that his attachment increased and that he became freed from all material contamination. And he became freed from all material entanglement, and he became perfect, or his perfection continued to develop, and his result was fully auspicious and fully perfect. So that was a lesson for me also, that, regardless of the external situation, because there's so many factors at play. It's not just about, my desire, but Krishna will always look after the devotee. Krishna always, there's nothing but good, there's nothing but mercy, there's nothing but love in Krishna. But everything Krishna does for his devotees is always for the devotee's benefit. The devotee always benefits. The devotee does never not benefit. So he, at a certain point, it became apparent to him that his service needed to go in a different direction, and he continued to follow the Lord's direction. We don't get much detail of the circumstance on the verses of Bhagavatam, but we know that without the mercy of the pure devotees of the Lord, there's no freedom from material existence. So he obviously progressed in his bhakti, and I tried to read through Srila Prabhupada's purports around Anga, and understand him a bit more, but I don't know very much about him. I couldn't understand very much about him. And I read Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Jiva Goswami's commentaries on these sections. They're very sparse. There was very little said about him, so I can't comment too much more on him. But his lesson that I got, that I thought was very relevant, was that what I just shared, that he was doing it all for the right reasons. The results were beyond his control, and he achieved the perfect result. So that's an important lesson, and it may not always be that externally things are ideal. But when I say our service to Krishna, it really means our service to the spiritual master. That is, Guru Bhakti means service to the spiritual master. And in terms of how we apply and how we engage ourselves according to our external situation, that's the governance of that is the Varnashram principles and the laws of Varnashram. So they are to be applied as much as they are favorable to us devotional service. So that was something else that came up here. And I was going to read something from Bhaktivinoda Thakur on that. But before I do, I'm going to read something from Srila Prabhupada from Antilila, chapter 13. Antilila chapter 13 has a beautiful description of Raghunath Bhatta Goswami's coming into the association of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Chaitanya's exchanges with Raghunath Bhatta Goswami and his instructions to him. And I mentioned earlier how Lord Chaitanya and his Leela is the Acharya Leela, showing he is, as Prabhupada points out in his introduction to Srimad Bhagavatam, the example of Bhagavatam applied in life. We can say that more specifically, Lord Chaitanya's followers, particularly the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, they are the role models for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. They're the role models, and they show the path of what it means to be a follower of Lord Chaitanya. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita, he highlights the lives of the 6 Goswamis for our benefit, and it's very purifying, it's very enlivening to hear about them and their activities, and to hear Lord Chaitanya's instructions to them. And Lord Chaitanya gave some very important instructions to Raghunath Bhatta Goswami about his external situation, and about how to fulfill his material responsibilities in a way which is favorable to his development in Krishna consciousness. So in this section of Bhagavatam, we're hearing about how King Anga performed his external material responsibilities as service. And so I thought it was relevant to highlight something here from Chaitanya Charitamrita on this principle. So I'm going to try and find this verse. The context here is that Raghunath Bhatta Goswami is the son of Lord Chaitanya's followers, who his mother and father, his father is which is Varanasi. He was sent there by Lord Chaitanya very early on. When Lord Chaitanya was traveling, when Lord Chaitanya was a student, around the age of 14, he traveled to what's now known as East Bengal on a tour, a scholarly tour. He was a scholar in grammar and also in Nyaya. He's from Navadvip, Nadia, which was the home of the Nyaya school of philosophy for all of India at that time. And he was a greatly renowned scholar, and there were other greatly renowned scholars of that time that Mahaprabhu defeated at such a young age, and displayed these scholarly pastimes which amazed everyone. This great erudition. He went on I think it was about 3 months, on a tour of what's now sort of Bangladesh, East Bengal. And at that time, he met a devotee. Now Mahaprabhu is Chana Avatar, he's covered incarnation. He wasn't displaying his divine qualities, Tapan Mishra. Tapan Mishra. But there was a couple of people that recognized him. And Mahaprabhu, and one of them was this person, Tapan Mishra. I haven't studied this recently, so please do forgive me if I'm getting any details wrong. But Tapan Mishra, he then sent him to Varanasi to live. And he said that in the future I'll come there and see him, which he did. Mahaprabhu did after taking sannyas, after completing his South India tour. He returned to Puri and then he visited Vrindavan. At that time he went through Varanasi. And Tapan Mishra and his wife were there. And Raghunath Bhatta, so Tapan Mishra is a Nitya Siddha Parikar, eternal associate of Mahaprabhu. And Raghunath Bhatta is his son. So Raghunath Bhatta came to Lord Chaitanya in Puri, and Lord Chaitanya gave him some instructions. Raghunath Bhatta wanted to reside with Mahaprabhu, but Mahaprabhu said not yet. And he told him to stay at home and serve his parents. And he highlighted that because his parents were pure Vaishnavas, he should serve them until they depart, until they leave their body. And then when you fulfill those responsibilities, then you should go to Vrindavan. After that time, after his parents departed, then Raghunath Bhatta, Mahaprabhu also told him during that time you should constantly chant Hare Krishna and study Srimad Bhagavatam. The two things go together. Constantly chanting and studying Srimad Bhagavatam. And Raghunath Bhatta was in the association of his father and mother, who were eternal associates of Lord Chaitanya, receiving their instructions and mercy. He was studying Bhagavatam. There was many great Vaishnavas, associates of Mahaprabhu there. And he followed those instructions. And then when his parents departed, then came back to Mahaprabhu in Puri, and then Mahaprabhu instructed him, now you go to Vrindavan and reside under the care of Rupa Sanatana Goswami. And under their direction, you engage in devotional service. But he told him to complete his material external duties. This is the point now. That he told Raghunath Bhatta that you should, and particularly he said, because your parents are pure Vaishnavas, then you're not even doing this. This is not a material responsibility. You're serving Vaishnavas by serving your parents. And this is pure bhakti. To serve Vaishnavas is a practice of pure devotion. It's not a material external responsibility that's being done to please Krishna, which is something connected to bhakti. That's called Sangha Siddha Bhakti. It's actually you're serving pure Vaishnavas. Your parents are pure Vaishnavas, you're serving them. So Mahaprabhu explained this is the real form of Varnashram. But when the parents are pure Vaishnavas, you're not doing a material responsibility of Krishna pleasure. It's not Varnashram. It's pure bhakti. So that's the real form of Varnashram. And that's what's displayed in the spiritual world. It's there, the real form of these principles. So I didn't bookmark it, which I'm a bit annoyed with myself that I didn't do that. So now I'm trying to find the actual verse that I wanted to recite. But I thought it was 120 something. So let me just see if I can find this verse. Give me a moment. Here we are. So this is in the purport to text 113, chapter 13 of Antilila. And I've got this all in one Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is totally next. It's fantastic. But the text is so small. When I first got it, I was like 18 years old. I got this as a gift from my Guru Maharaj for book distribution. He wrote a nice thing in the front of the book for me. But at that time, I could read it really easily. Now I need to use one of these to be able to see the words. But I still use it because it's such a beautiful gift. And having all of Chaitanya Charitamrita in one place is wonderful. So Mahaprabhu said to Raghunath Bhatta, when you return home, serve your aged father and mother who are devotees and try to study Srimad Bhagavatam from a pure Vaishnava who has realized God. In his purport to that verse, which is 113, Srila Prabhupada quotes Sanatana Goswami, who includes a verse in Hari Bhakti Vilas from Padma Purana. No, it's from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. This is a verse quoted by Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He says, Lokiki Vaidiki Vapi Ya Kriya Kriyate Mune Hari Sevanukulaiva Sakarya Bhaktim Ichata. One should perform only those activities, either worldly or prescribed by Vedic rules and regulations, which are favorable for the cultivation of Krishna consciousness. So this is a principle on which the followers of Lord Chaitanya act when performing their external responsibilities, which are to be performed under the guidelines of Varnashram. They do those things which are favorable for the cultivation of Krishna consciousness. Because the purpose of all of the Varnashram rules and regulations and tradition, customs, is to cultivate Krishna consciousness. Actually, all the rules and regulations are meant to that. Rupa Goswami says, Yena tena prakarena mana Krishnena veshaya sarva vidi nishedasyo etayor eva kinkaraha. One should fix his mind on Krishna by any means. All the rules and prohibitions mentioned in the Shastras should be servants of this principle. So everything should serve that principle of fixing the mind on Krishna, being absorbed in Krishna. And that's the result of Hare Krishna. That's the result that we should be seeing as a result of following any rule and regulation. How is it helping me become more absorbed in Krishna, in my devotional service to Krishna? So there's more that can be said, but I'm going to stop there. And that was what King Anga did. And the results of it, well, that's what we're hearing about externally, but actually for him, he applied himself to that, and the result was that he attained perfection. So that was what I chose to focus on when reading this section. That was one of the principles here that I felt to be most relevant for me, and I hope my sharing that with you is of some help. Hare Krishna. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Prabhu, any comments? It's actually suited for Prabhu's here, so I'm asking if he has. Mm. Mm. Yeah, right. Mm, mm, mm. Yeah, nice. If you're on Zoom, Sachi Sutta Prabhu said that he didn't hear it. He said that, even Srila Prabhupada got hit by a cow. So auspicious or inauspicious things, they will come, regardless. Yeah. It's how you deal with it that matters. Yeah, thank you. Any other, yes, Matthew? Anga? Hmm. Yeah. There is, so earlier, I wish I had the book, it's so much quicker just to go back. I'm having to click through pages on it. You'll see that in text 39, we're on 40 something. On text 39 in the purport, Prabhupada said the child's mother, Sunita, was the daughter of death personified. Generally, the daughter receives the qualifications of her father, and the son acquires those of the mother. And he carries on a little with that, and then he quotes, doesn't give a reference, but he says, Naranam Matula Karma. So that's the principle from Shastra. So that's what I was trying to emphasize earlier on, that that's one principle at play, but there's multiple. So we shouldn't take a singular item and base everything on that, because there's multiple factors. But like you said, yeah, it's karma. It's yeah, it could have been, I don't know, it doesn't say much about his association as a child. But generally that's right, we act according to what we've associated with. So either his previous life, bad association, maybe there was some earlier bad association in his life. Not a lot said. Yeah, 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 yeah. The one thing's for sure, that Vena is not his body. I'll tell you something else that I got from this as a teacher and as an educator is that it's important not to, I believe, it's important not to hold a permanent perspective on an individual based on something that they do. Because, yeah, we have our natures, and certain aspects of our natures, they always stay with us, and we are what we are. At the same time, yeah, Krishna's reciprocating with us all according to our desires, and through association, our desires can change. What we aspire for, what we want, and so we're always trying to encourage everyone to take up Krishna's service, and it's actually from Krishna's service that all the good qualities come. There's this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam that says that by rendering devotional service, then all of the good qualities, Sarva Deva Gunaya, all of the good qualities of the Lord, the demigods, they manifest. And it comes from that focus on service. It's by contact with bhakti that the real good nature of the soul can come out, the real potential of the soul, which is good, which is loving, which is kind, which is... So we should never stop in our endeavor of trying to connect people to bhakti, and keep ourselves connected with bhakti so that those good qualities can develop. Because spiritual qualities are eternal and they can be cultivated. So we should never, that doesn't mean that we don't apply discrimination. You know, if I had someone killing other children in the playground, you know, I'd be getting onto the police, you know, and they'd be coming in and dealing with, you know, you don't ignore the situation, you deal with the external situation before you respond. But at the same time, we should also always want everyone to benefit. And yeah, I had a temple president that joined in prison. You know, so there's multiple factors. It's not just the material circumstances, which are always temporary. But yeah, the world's a complicated place. All right, we'll finish. Hare Krishna, everyone. Have a good day, and all glories to Srila Prabhupada.